Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. Europe's industrial engine, once the envy of global manufacturing, is now sputtering in a way no engineer ever anticipated. Assembly lines from Germany to Italy have gone silent, not because of broken machinery, but because the supply chain behind them has cracked under geopolitical strain. A rare earth magnet squeeze from China collided head-on with US tariffs and new EU steel duties, creating a perfect storm that threatens the very foundation of European automotive power. This isn't just a slowdown, it's a continent-wide stall. Here are the developments reshaping Europe's auto future. Europe's factories freeze, a silent crisis exposed. Across Europe's industrial heartland, once busy production floors now sit eerily silent. In Germany, robotic arms that normally weld and assemble with flawless precision stand frozen mid-motion. The same stillness stretches across Austria and Italy, where state-of-the-art assembly halls have gone dark, not from mechanical failure, but from a sudden shortage of neodymium permanent magnets, the tiny components essential to electric motors. These magnets power modern electric drivetrains, aerospace systems, robotics, data center cooling units, sensors, and military equipment. Their unmatched strength-to-size ratio makes them irreplaceable. When Chinese shipments slowed, manufacturers briefly relied on reserves never intended for a geopolitically driven cutoff. China's export approvals then crashed below 30%, turning a slowdown into a full-scale supply shock. Industry groups soon confirmed the worst. Stockpiles vanished in weeks, robots stopped, motors went unfinished, and vehicles piled up half-built. The disruption is more than logistical, it's psychological. Europe now faces the unsettling truth that its industrial strength can be halted by a component smaller than a coin. And this silent crisis didn't emerge randomly. It was decades in the making, shaped by decisions Europe once believed were harmless. China's magnet empire, a strategy decades in motion. Europe's vulnerability did not emerge suddenly. It was built over decades as efficiency was prioritized over strategic resilience. In the 1990s and 2000s, while Western nations tightened environmental rules and shuttered mines, China rapidly expanded rare earth mining, refining, and magnet manufacturing. Large-scale separation plants, aggressive subsidies, and a long-term industrial strategy allowed China to dominate every stage of the supply chain. By 2025, it refined over 90% of the world's rare earths and produced nearly all permanent magnets essential for EV motors. China's leverage came not through dramatic bans but through tightening export licenses. Restrictions expanded from raw minerals to refined materials, components, and eventually any product containing Chinese-sourced elements, even if manufactured abroad. European suppliers were caught completely off guard. Meanwhile, Chinese automakers enjoyed stable domestic access, letting them increase production just as European factories stalled. Europe outsourced magnet production to cut costs. China used that outsourcing to consolidate power. Now the consequences are reshaping the continent's industrial future. But China's dominance wasn't the only blow Europe faced. Another economic hit was barreling in fast from across the Atlantic. Before we continue, smash that like and subscribe button. This keeps Piston Pundit rolling and helps us bring more deep-dive automotive breakdowns to gearheads like you. Now, let's shift gears and steer toward our next point. Tariffs strike hard. Europe's auto sector takes fire. Just as Europe struggled with the rare earth crisis, a second shock hit from across the Atlantic. Under updated US tariff policies, European automakers now face steep barriers to selling vehicles, engines, and critical components into the American market, a market vital to their profitability. Volkswagen warned the tariffs could cost up to 5 billion euros this year, slashing profits by more than half. Mercedes-Benz reported a staggering 70% drop in EBIT, while Audi downgraded expectations, and BMW issued a rare profit warning as US duties and slower China sales took their toll. Pressure within Europe is mounting too. New EU steel rules, cutting import quotas and imposing a 50% tariff on excess volume, have sharply increased production costs. Since automakers rely heavily on specialized steel, these price spikes ripple through every stage of manufacturing. Together, rare earth shortages and tariff-driven inflation have created a perfect storm, eroding Europe's cost competitiveness just as Chinese EV manufacturers surge ahead with fewer constraints. And this growing strain didn't stop at automaking. Its shockwave spread outward into the entire modern technology ecosystem. Tech sectors tremble. Rare earth shockwave goes global. What started in Europe's auto factories has now cascaded across global technology sectors. Rare earth magnets, essential to high-speed data center motors, industrial robots, drones, medical imaging, wind turbines, semiconductor tools, and military systems, sit at the core of the modern digital economy. When China tightened export controls on holmium, europium, and even refining equipment, industries worldwide braced for deeper delays. European prices have surged to several times China's domestic cost, forcing companies to rethink investments and postpone long-term projects. Robotics firms warn of slowed automation rollouts, aerospace suppliers face production setbacks, and even defense sectors are seeing disruptions in precision components normally protected by national stockpiles. This crisis exposes how deeply rare earths underpin everyday technology, from smartphones and AI servers to renewable energy motors. Nations that once assumed stable access now confront a world split into competing technological blocks, each with unequal access to critical materials. The rare earth crisis isn't just about cars, it's about the foundations of modern life. And with so many sectors under pressure, Europe has been forced into a high-stakes industrial race, one it can't afford to lose. Europe's race for independence, a countdown against decline. In response to the rare earth crisis, Europe is undertaking one of its most ambitious industrial overhauls. Through the Resource EU initiative and the Critical Raw Materials Act, the EU plans to invest €3.5 billion to create an integrated rare earth supply chain, from recycling and refining to magnet manufacturing. The new European Critical Raw Materials Center will centralize stockpiling, assess risks, and control material allocation, while stricter export rules aim to keep valuable scrap and battery waste within the bloc. But building independence is slow and complex. New mines require nearly a decade, refining capacity remains limited, and Europe's magnet manufacturing base lags far behind China's mature ecosystem. Recycling offers promise but cannot yet supply the vast volumes needed. Meanwhile, the world is splitting into two industrial spheres: Western-aligned nations diversifying supply chains, and China retaining dominance in mid- and downstream processing. Europe's future competitiveness hinges on how quickly it can rebuild capabilities and regain strategic control, because industrial, technological, and energy independence are now inseparable. And all of this leads to one unavoidable conclusion: Europe is approaching a defining crossroads in global automaking. Verdict: a global auto reset. Power shifts begin now. Europe's auto shutdown is more than a production halt. It marks a pivotal reset in global manufacturing. China's rare earth controls exposed how deeply Europe's EV ambitions relied on fragile supply chains, while US tariffs and EU steel duties intensified financial pressure across the industry. This crisis wasn't triggered by one failure, but by multiple long-ignored vulnerabilities converging at once. What happens next will determine whether Europe rebuilds stronger, with diversified supply chains and renewed industrial capability, or loses further ground to Chinese automakers whose stable resources give them a growing global edge. The world is watching closely, because Europe's response will influence the future balance of technological and industrial power far beyond its borders. Before you go, consider these questions. Do you think Europe can realistically rebuild a competitive magnet supply chain? Will China's dominance push other nations into deeper industrial alliances? Which automaker is best positioned to survive this global restructuring? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insights drive the conversation here. To stay updated on the next major shifts shaping the automotive world, make sure to subscribe to Piston Pundit and turn on notifications so you don't miss future breakdowns and vehicle updates. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.